Hello guys. Right, question 4 today. Paper 1, question 4. Looking at how to effectively evaluate a statement. Right, this is the question where a student has read the same text as you and made a comment about it. You then have to respond to the statement, use quotes, and write about the writer's use of methods. By methods, we mean language and structure. Chances are we're going to focus on language because we can write about that in a more developed way. It's worth 20 marks. You're likely to spend up to 30 minutes on this question. This is the question that is most commonly missed out. Very often where candidates do answer this question, they write very little. So this question is likely to play a big role in what your overall grade is. Do not miss out. Do not write a paragraph. If you do, I will find you and I will fight you. Right, this is the structure I'd use. Really, really simple. I'm going to, in my first paragraph, write about the first part of the statement, talk about it in detail. My second paragraph is going to be about how the writers create those effects, and that's probably going to be language. I'm going to use my Tuqui style paragraphs that I was doing for questions 2 and 3, and I'm going to try and link it to the statement if I can. Paragraph 3, I'm going to look at the second part of the statement, use a quote, talk about my ideas. Paragraph 4, see for an example of language, talk about it in as much detail as possible, link to the statement. Super simple. Opinion, language, opinion, language. Right, what I must remember to do is those paragraphs 2 and 4. I need to make sure I am writing about the writer's use of language explicitly with some terminology in there, because if I don't, it's going to cap my mark, and I certainly don't want that to happen. Right, so we're going to look at the one that we've been working on. I Am Legend. Here is the question 4. A student who read this part of the text said, Neville is presented as lonely here. He is right to feel scared. To what extent do you agree? Right. It usually is going to ask you to focus on the second half of the source, and I've picked that out for us in this blue box. I'm going to read through the blue box. You're going to be thinking about the statement. So Neville is presented as lonely. He is right to feel scared. You're going to think about those two ideas as I'm reading, and you're going to think, which parts of this section could I use to evidence my ideas? He jammed in his earplugs and a great silence engulfed him. He turned off the light and crawled in between the sheets. He looked at the radium-faced clock and saw that it was only a few minutes past 10. Just as well, he thought. This way I'll get an early start. He lay there on the bed and took deep breaths of the darkness, hoping for sleep. But the silence didn't really help. He could still see them out there, the white-faced men prowling around his house, looking ceaselessly for a way to get in at him. Some of them, probably, crouching on their haunches like dogs, eyes glittering at the house, teeth slowly grating together, back and forth, back and forth. And the women. Did he have to start thinking about them again? He tossed over on his stomach with a curse and pressed his face into the hot pillow. He lay there breathing heavily, body writhing slightly on the sheet. Let the morning come. His mind spoke the words it spoke every night. Dear God, let the morning come. He dreamed about Virginia, and he cried out in his sleep, and his fingers gripped the sheets like frenzied talons. Okay, so what do I do? Right, I'm going to split my statement into 2 sections. I'm always going to have 2 sections. I'm always going to be able to split it. So I've got Neville is presented as lonely here, and that's the one that I'm going to focus on. He is right to feel scared, and that's the one that you're going to be working on when I've finished nattering away. Okay, so I'm going to get my scale. I've drawn the scale at the top of the sheet. I've got my extract. I've got my idea. I'm going to decide where on the scale of agreement, I don't know if I've made that up as a thing, but on the scale of agreement, where am I? So Neville is presented as lonely here. Well, based on the extract, I'm definitely on the agree side, but I'm probably not going to fully agree because that's going to make it easier for me to talk about my opinion. So here's my example. So here's my model. I partly agree with the first part of the statement where it says that Neville is presented as lonely. He seems to have gone to bed early as it's described as being only a few minutes past 10. This might suggest that he is lonely. and that potentially he has gone to bed early because there's no one to talk to, so he might as well sleep. However, I only partly agree, because I do think he seems lonely, I don't think it's his dominant feeling. I think Neville feels more worried about what's outside because he prays, "Dear God, let the morning come." I think this shows that Neville is concerned about what could happen to him during the night, and he's turning to God to support this. Maybe this shows that he isn't truly alone because he feels a connection with God. Right, so it's just my opinion. There's no right or wrong here, but by putting myself sort of not completely at either end with fully agreeing or fully disagreeing, I'm able to talk about, on the one hand, I think this, but on the other hand, I think this, and that makes it easier for me to be that little bit more developed. Right, so that's my paragraph 1 done, where I'm talking about my opinions. My paragraph 2, I've got to talk about the writer's use of language. Now, this extract, part of this extract, is the same as the one that I used for question 2, where I wrote about language. So here is this guinea pig saying, "Can I use it again?" Well, do you know what? Yes, you can, you clever guinea pig. I don't know why it's a guinea pig. Let's just go with it. You can reuse any ideas that you wrote about earlier on in the paper, as long as they're relevant and from the right section. And these are, so make my life easy. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't rewrite it. You've already done it. So here's the paragraph that I wrote before, and I've tried to adapt it to the focus of the question. So when I finish nattering on, you can have a look at this, and I've added in purple the bits that have shown me linking back to the statement, exactly the same as the one that I used before. I've just put in a couple of extra sentences. You can absolutely do this. The examiners won't know you've done it. It is absolutely fine. Don't reinvent the wheel. If you're happy with what you wrote about it, use it again. Okay, folks, so this is your task now. So I've done paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 on the slides, and you're going to do paragraphs 3 and 4. So you're going to be looking at the second part of the statement. He is right to feel scared. So you're going to write paragraph 3 where you talk about your opinion. Get yourself looking at the scale. Where are you sitting on the scale? Are you agreeing? Are you disagreeing? To what extent? Then you're going to do a paragraph 4 where you're going to write about language from the extracts with as many comments and effects as you can. Now, because there's been some overlap between the question 2 where we write about language and this question, you are absolutely fine to use things that you wrote about previously. That's not a problem. You don't need to submit it to me, but I am, as ever, very, very happy to mark whatever you do. So if you want me to have a look at it, please either submit it over Satchel 1 or pop it on an email to me.